My favorite time of year is coming up, and I had to bring out a little bit of gold. Welcome to my channel. My name is Kelly, and today we're going to paint this lovely little bird using a bokeh effect, some snow, and it just is super cute for a holiday card. I got this picture off of Pixabay, and we're going to do the little bokeh effect on this one. I have not done this effect. I have seen folks do it a number of times, but I'm kind of putting my little spin on it. I decided to take out, because it's the holidays, my metallic paints, my gold paints. And I was originally just going to do the bokeh effect, but I really thought a little gold for the holidays, right? It'll do us good. So I'm sketching it in, and we are going to do a very light wash at first on the robin. And now I should have gone a little bit darker here, and I realized that. I'm like, you can barely even see that. It looks like just I wet the paper basically. So I'm going in with a little bit darker shade. Now you can make this color with a little bit of umber and ultramarine blue with a lot of water. So it's a very light wash, more on the brown side than it is on the blue side. But this was the color that I see on the very underneath of the bird, and you can just pretty much paint him completely in. You don't even have to worry about going around the eye really, because it's going to be black. And I did leave the area that is more of that orange, bright orange red for underneath. And this is starting to dry. I can see that it's already drying a little bit, but I think it's going to soften, I hope. I've got a little bit more darker brown in here, going in with the next shade or next value, a little bit darker with some of those little feathers. So the thing about this is a 5x7 painting that I'm working with, and I just wanted to share with you guys, if you want something that's more realistic, because I'm working so small, it's kind of hard to get all of those little details in there. The bigger that the painting is, the more that you can do. As you shrink it down, it looks more realistic. So if you want to try something like this a little bit bigger, I would love to see it. You could get a little bit more of the light wash in there, a little bit more detail around the eye, and maybe a couple little bit more details in the feathers. You don't have to go really heavy with it. You can keep it very light and simple. But I found that I just tended to overwork it a little bit more. Probably should have kept it nice and light like it is here, but because I was just playing trial and error, and I often don't do my paintings twice when I'm sharing these with you, so you're seeing me in my learning process as well. If I ever try something twice, which honestly, I hate doing the same painting twice, but I would learn so much, I think, if I did. I just go on to something different, and that's just my personality. So if you want to try it a couple of times, like I like this very light and airy look, and I probably could have just done a little bit less with my touches. Again, I'm like a detail painter. I was painting along with my mom while we were doing this, and it's so funny because when I'm painting and I'm talking a lot, or I'm doing it with another person, I tend to wait for them to get done, so I'll overwork it. Or I could say I'm a little bit faster than she is. She does a lot of detail work, and I tend to like that looseness. So I find that I overwork things a lot when I'm painting along with her, because I'm just waiting for her to either catch up or we get to the next step. So I'm just filling in just that little tree trunk, trying to leave some space there where the white is so I don't have to use gouache to fill it in. Gouache is my cheat. And I absolutely love the way that orange bled into the brown area just a little bit. Now see that? How cute is that? I could have left it like that, kept it really light and simple, but I didn't. Again, I'm trying to throw in a little bit of detail in here as I'm talking with her, just to get some texture in the little fence post here. And it's still wet, so it's still kind of moving and bleeding, so I'm going to have to wait for that to dry. So I'm going to move up and add just a little bit more detail in the top of the wood. So I'm going a little bit darker here, add a little bit more blue to that just to give a nice little shadow. Just kind of popping in those little spots that I see a little bit darker. So the bird is still slightly wet, and this is when I start to add a little bit more detail. I've got a little bit more blue, a little bit darker value, kind of popping in some of those darker feathers. Yeah, I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to move that orange, and that's still a little bit wet there. This is also where you can shape your bird up a little bit more. This guy's like really puffed out. You can see a little pop belly. He's eaten too many Christmas cookies already. But it's so cute. And I'm trying to kind of not overwork it too much. Now I'm using a large brush for this as well. Here's a close-up of it. It dried really light. Again, it was really pretty. I'm going to go in with a darker shade of a yellow ochre color. I found it was just a little bit too light. It wasn't the right color for the piece of wood or the fence. But I was using a little bit larger brush than I normally do. This will help you stay a little bit looser. So if you are like me and you're a really tight painter, small brushes are evil because you want to detail everything in really tiny little marks. So if you want to keep your paintings loose, try to use a little bit bigger brush, even if you're working in these smaller areas. So you can see now I'm just going to add in some of the similar shade. This is why I decided to do a little bit of the gold in here too, because I thought that would look really nice because it's all so monochromatic at this point. So I'm going to add a little bit more blue over here, trying to get a little bit darker on one side. And I am trying to work quick because I don't want this to dry. So you can see I've got a nice little divider where the fence is. It's got a little bit of snow on top of the little wire. So I don't want to cover that whole area. Again, I don't want to have to use gouache really heavy. So I'm just going to leave that white without using any kind of masking. Get a little bit of that blue in there to make a nice shade of gray. And because this brush, even though it's big, it's got a nice point to it, I can get a lot of little lines and details with that. And being messy with it, not getting too precise because it's snow laying on top. And I figure I just need a little bit darker in here. It's a little bit too light. So I'm just going to re-wet that whole area. Again, it's still wet, so it's not going to leave any lines at this point. You have to make sure that you get it done in one full swoop without going back in because you will leave yourself marks. So I've switched brush now. I have a nice little round brush. It's got a little bit, I wish I had a little bit stiffer bristle, but I'm going to work with what I've got. So I've just wet that brush a little bit. Now you could do this too when it's all wet, but I went in and dried it first because I was still in the thinking process. I wasn't quite sure I was going to do the bokeh effect on this when I first started it. So I am going back in with a wet brush and just creating that little bit of circular motion and lifting some of that out. You can see it reactivates the paint. It's creating different size circles everywhere, being a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller in some other areas. And you can also use a tissue to lift it out, just press and lift up. That will help remove a little bit more color. And I'm just going to layer these on top. Again, tapping out some extra. I think this effect is just so cool. Like, I think this would be great for holiday cards. Just going to continue on creating some other circles in different places. I didn't like those are all two together, so I'm trying to do another little one in there. Again, you can have a lot of fun with this, just working slowly and just, it's really therapeutic when you're just creating little circles. You can layer them a little bit more. This is when I was like, I think I'm going to take out my gold paints here and add some gold to it. Instead of lifting, I'm going to actually add the gold on top. But before I do that, I'm going to go in, and this is where I'm waiting for my mom to catch up, so I'm doing a little bit more detail in the bird. I do have to put the feet in, create that little beak, and putting a couple more feathers in here. And it doesn't need a whole lot. I went way overboard near the end. Remember, you can stop, think about it a little bit more, see if you want to do a little bit more in there or if you are done. Sometimes when you're in it, you just don't see it. Like, wow, it doesn't look done yet. There's not enough in there. Looks too plain. But then once I come back and look at it the next day as I'm doing my edits, I'm thinking, oh, why didn't I leave it? I liked it like that. Like it looks better to me than when I went in too heavy with other colors, but too late now. That's why stopping sometimes helps. Gives you fresh eyes. So let's go ahead and pop another couple lines in here for the feet. You can see I've got a very small, long liner brush now. And I have a tendency to choke up on the brush when I'm trying to get those really small little details in there. There you go, easy, little feet. Go a little bit darker. This is when I start to get a little bit darker. Even with like the tiniest little mark with your brush makes such a difference sometimes. All right, a few more details in the wood. Again, a little bit darker value, just creating some little marks, some lines in here, trying to capture the shadow areas a little bit more with that next darker value. And you don't have to go too dark, just a little. And then here's where I start to do a little bit more details on the bird, going with a little bit darker values just for the wings. And then I just added a little bit of shadow underneath. This is where that little fence is. Maybe a little snow is on the top of it. Could have gone a little bit lighter there. And there's like a little knot in here. And I think we could throw some snow on here too. So I am gonna grab my toothbrush and come back and just put a little bit of snow on there. I'm just darkening up a couple little spots here on the legs as well. And grabbing the Doc Martens Bleed Proof White, my toothbrush, and we're just gonna spritz a little bit of snow on the top of this. Tapping off some of the extra. I don't want it super watery, just a little bit. The more water you have, that little bit of a finer mist you can get. There. How cute is that? So that softens the bird up a little bit too. If you go too heavy on something, it's a nice way to lighten things. So at this point, I removed the tape, I put the mat on it, and I thought it was really sweet. But then I had this little idea. Okay, so this is pretty as is, but because we're in the holiday season, I was feeling a little festive. I decided that I really wanted to add a little bit of my gold paints to this. So probably I should have done if I had figured this out beforehand, I would have done the splattering of that snow after I add the gold, but it works out fine. I just go right over the top of it. I'm just taking that same brush and just creating some more of those circles, just going in with a couple different shades. Now these are the classic metallics. I think they're made by Mozart. And I bought these last year, I think on Amazon. So I will see if I can find the link for you guys and I'll put it in the description box below. So I just added, again, a few different shades of the gold and the coppers in here. And it worked really well, I think, with that bokeh effect. I was so into the holiday spirit this week. I actually did my Christmas card. Every year I do a new scene. So 2023 is actually out and cards are available for pre-order. And for my patrons, I think I'm going to make this a class. I actually filmed it. And if you want to check out what the image is, you can head over to my Instagram page or my Facebook page. I've posted it over there. And I'll put that link down below for you too in case you want to order some cards. All right, make sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a great week.